A light drizzle slid down the glass walls of the hospital, as if someone up above was quietly washing the city. It was almost 3 a.m. The avenue had already silenced the noise of cars, and only the distant sound of a late-night bus broke the heavy calm of that stretch of Michigan Avenue. Inside the hospital, the air had the cold smell of disinfectant and metal. A long corridor, lit by lights that were too white, seemed endless. And it was in that corridor that Rose Martin, in her faded green uniform and mop in hand, remembered again that at that hour, no one ever notices the person cleaning the floor. She took a deep breath. The air was so cold it stung the back of her throat. Each step she took echoed dryly on the ceramic tile. The bucket swayed, and the chlorinated water moved in an almost hypnotic rhythm, reflecting the ceiling of white lights like an artificial sky. The overnight shift was the one Rose liked. Few people, little noise, and most importantly, fewer of those stares that pierce a person's soul, as if she were part of the wall. She leaned the mop handle on the floor and started the usual motion, pushing the water forward, breathing slowly, trying not to think about the pain in her back, which was already part of her body. The routine was tough, but safe. It was predictable, and predictable, for someone like her, was almost a luxury, until something broke the rhythm. A snippet of conversation escaped through the half-open door of the doctor's lounge. A muffled phrase, but clear enough to make her heart skip a beat. "Mark, we did everything." Everything. Rose stopped slowly, lifted her face. The corridor was empty, just the light flickering a bit on the ceiling, as if afraid to go out for good. The voice of Dr. Henry, the one who always greeted staff with a sincere good night, continued. "Luke isn't responding to treatment anymore. His kidney failure is total." The name hung in the air. Luke. She didn't know who he was, but the doctor's voice came heavy, broken. Another voice replied, masculine, deeper, exhausted. "I'll pay whatever it takes. I'll buy whatever it takes. No, don't let my son die, please." A shiver ran up Rose's neck. She approached almost without wanting to, almost wanting very much to understand. She stood a few inches from the door, breathing quietly, as if she could disappear there. "It's not money," said the doctor. "The problem is the blood type. AB negative, one of the rarest out there. The wait list could take months. He has 2, maybe 3 weeks." Her bucket trembled in her hand. AB negative. A quick memory flashed through her mind like lightning. The clinic room, 20 years ago, a nurse laughing while noting it in the chart. "AB negative, Ms. Rose. That's a rarity. Keep this paper, okay? You never know." Rose blinked hard, bringing her vision back. The lounge door opened forcefully. The man inside came out, and for a moment, Rose swore the floor seemed smaller, as if she were looking down at a huge person, completely shattered. The man, Mark Anderson, she recognized from the famous last name she'd seen in magazines left in the lobby, walked to the pediatric ICU door. He stopped there, placing his hand on the glass wall, as if touching his own heart on the other side. His shoulders shook, but there was no sound. His cry was silent, from someone who'd already cried everything out and now just breathed. Rose gripped the mop, felt a deep pang in her chest, the same feeling she had the day she almost lost Anna, her daughter. That feeling that the world could end and no one would stop it. She lowered her eyes and kept pushing the mop, but with trembling hands. That scene stuck to her like a strong smell that doesn't come out even after washing clothes. Time for the staff coffee break. The cafeteria had the smell of stale bread and weak coffee. Yellow light, scratch tables. The real life of the hospital, the part no patient sees. Sandra, the veteran nurse, tossed her bag on the chair and immediately noticed Rose's odd look. She sat beside her. "What's wrong, Rosie? You look pale." Rose told her quietly, ashamed of having overheard. When she got to the part about AB negative, Sandra squeezed her arm. "Rose, this is serious. Kidney isn't a joke. But he's dying, Sandra." Rose's voice came out so low it was barely audible. "And I have the same blood, the same." Sandra breathed deeply, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "Listen, to these people, you don't exist. You're the one who mops. You think they'll let you? You donate a kidney like that? They won't even look at your face." Rose stayed silent. It hurt to hear, but it hurt because it was true. Sandra put her hand on her shoulder. "If you still want to talk directly to him. To the dad, to that Mark. He always goes to smoke on the balcony by the ICU around 9 p.m. No security, no one. It's the only time he forgets he's a millionaire. Rose lowered her eyes. Her hands trembled again. That thought hammered in her head all day. On the next shift, she entered her simple apartment in the South Side and, sitting at the Formica table, wrote on a small paper, "Mr. Mark, my name is Rose Martin. I'm a janitor at the hospital. My blood is AB negative. If the kidney fits Luke, I want to donate." She folded the paper slowly, as if it were fragile. She tucked it into the pocket of her clean uniform. At 8 p.m., the ICU corridor was almost empty. The white light seemed even colder. Rose sat on a bench near the balcony. Waited 8:15, 8:30, 9:05. Until the door opened. Mark came out slowly, with the exhaustion of someone who hasn't slept in days. Red eyes, wrinkled shirt, cigarette trembling between his fingers. Rose stood up. Her legs felt weak, as if the floor had vanished. "Mr. Mark." He didn't even turn. "Not now, please." She took another step. "It's about Luke." Then he turned. And for a second, Rose thought that man could explode. "Who are you?" She swallowed dry. "My name is Rose. I overheard by accident. Sorry, but I have AB negative blood." His cigarette burned to the filter. "You want money? Is that it? Say it already." His voice was cold, tired, almost cruel. Rose felt her face burn, but she stood firm. "I don't want money." She pulled the paper from her pocket, crumpled from hand sweat. "I want to donate one of my kidneys to your son." Silence. Just the sound of the light rain on the balcony railing. Mark laughed. A short, nervous laugh, almost a sob. "Why? Why would you do that?" His voice broke on the why. Rose held the note with both hands. "Because I know what it's like to think you're going to lose a child. I begged God to take my life instead of my Anna's." Her eyes shone. "And because I have 2 kidneys, he only needs 1. Mark opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The rain stopped suddenly. The city fell into a strange, dense silence, as if it were listening too. Mark stubbed out the cigarette hard on the ledge, and when he lifted his face, something had changed in his look. It wasn't hope yet, but it was the first step. "Come with me," he said. His voice wasn't hard anymore. "We're going to talk to the doctor now." And as they walked down the too bright corridor, Rose didn't notice, but the note crumpled in her hand was marked with a small water stain. Maybe rain, maybe a tear. And it was in that stain that her decision and the conflict to come began to form. Dr. Henry's office smelled of alcohol and fresh paper. The large window let in a bright white morning light from Chicago, too harsh for someone who'd been up all night. Rose sat on the edge of the chair in front, as if afraid to ruin the upholstery. Her hands, rough from so many chemicals, were sweaty. Mark paced back and forth like a lion in a cage. His expensive suit no longer matched his disheveled look. Unshaven, sunken eyes, tie half loose. The doctor opened a thick folder, leafed through slowly, and breathed deeply. "Ms. Rose, are you sure about what you want to do?" She swallowed dry, but answered without beating around the bush. "I am. I already told you. I want to try." Dr. Henry took off his glasses, rubbed his face. He looked older that day. "Kidney transplant isn't a simple procedure. You'll live with just one. There's risk in the surgery, risk in the anesthesia, risk of infection. Afterward, you'll need rest, follow-up. It's a big deal." Rose didn't look away. Her voice came low, but firm. "Will I be able to go back to work after?" He was surprised by the question. "If everything goes well, yes. It'll take a while. No heavy lifting, no strain. But yes. And take care of my granddaughter. Take the bus. Go to the market, those things." One corner of the doctor's mouth lifted in a weak smile. "Taking care of grandkids? You'll do that for sure. Just no carrying the girl around at first." Rose let out an okay, almost whispered. Inside, her heart beat so loud it seemed to echo in the room. Mark stopped pacing and exploded. "If it's too dangerous for her, we don't do it. I don't want to put anyone else's life at risk." Rose turned her face to him, a bit irritated. "The son is yours, but the kidney is mine, Mr. Mark. I'm the one who has to decide." The silence fell heavy. Even the clock on the wall seemed to stop for a second. "Dr. Henry cleared his throat, returning to a professional tone. "First, we need to see if your body can handle it, and if there's compatibility with Luke. We'll start the tests today. If at any point you want to back out, just say so. No one here will judge." Rose shook her head slowly. She already knew, deep down, she wouldn't back out. The lab smelled of cotton and rubber. The needle entered her arm vein with a small pop, and she squeezed her eyes, not from pain, but nerves. The tube filled with dark blood. AB negative for sure, murmured the tech looking at the labels. You're a rarity, huh? Rose gave a crooked smile. They've told me that once. Then came the ultrasound, lying on a cold stretcher, belly exposed, cold gel dripping. The doctor slid the device, looking at the screen full of gray shadows. Beautiful kidneys, Ms. Rose, working just fine. They're whole, right? She asked, joking to hide it. Whole and strong, even enviable. She laughed awkwardly. EKG, X-ray, blood pressure, weight, a million questions. In each room, someone calling her name loudly, Rose Martin. She always startled, not used to being called by name in that building. Usually it was Miss, Ma'am, the janitor. At the end of the day, she sat alone on a corridor bench, legs heavy, head spinning from tiredness. She looked out the window and saw the city below, traffic jammed, horns, life going on as if nothing was happening. And if it doesn't work, a thought crossed. She breathed deep, pushed the question to the back of her head, along with so many others she'd stored her whole life. 2 days later, Dr. Henry called. Rose, come with me, he wants to meet you. She stiffened in the chair. He who? Luke. The corridor to the pediatric ICU seemed longer that day. The constant beeps of monitors made a strange background music between calm and despair. The automatic glass door opened, hitting her face with a strong smell of alcohol and plastic. Luke's room looked more like a fancy hotel room than a hospital one. Big TV, comfortable couch, and used toys in a corner. But Rose didn't see any of that right. She only saw the little boy, too thin, yellowish skin, huge eyes, arm hooked to tubes, the machine beside him, making a rhythmic noise, cleaning the blood his kidneys couldn't filter anymore. He seemed fragile enough to break if touched too hard. Mark was by the bed, sitting in an armchair. When Rose entered, he stood. Luke, this is Ms. Rose, the one I told you about. The boy turned his head slowly, looked at her with curiosity, no fear. Hi, he said in a thread of voice. Rose approached slowly, careful like someone afraid to wake a bird. Hi, kid. It came out naturally, without planning. Can I come closer? He nodded. She sat on the bed edge, holding her uniform so as not to touch anything wrong. His eyes wandered over her simple face, her hastily tied hair, her hands marked by cleaning products. My dad said you're going to give me a piece of you, he murmured. Is it true? Rose swallowed, feeling her throat scratch. It's a piece only, a kidney. I keep the other, we share. But why? His eyes filled with water without falling. You don't even know me. Rose breathed deep. The answer came as an image in her head. Anna, still small, burning with fever in the crowded ER, her kneeling on the cold tile floor, promising God everything she had and what she didn't. Because I know what it's like to lie down and think you're going to lose a child, she said quietly. And because I can. If I can, I do. Luke looked at her for a few seconds. A kind of weird peace passed over his face, as if something heavy had lightened. Thank you, he whispered. And that thank you entered Rose in a way no year-end tip ever had. On the third day, Rose went back to the office with wobbly legs. Dr. Henry had the same thick folder in hand. Mark leaned against the window, looking at nothing. She sat, clutched her purse in her lap, counted to 3 silently, as if it would solve anything. So, doctor, her voice came out hoarse. He leafed through, taking longer than her heart wanted. Then closed the folder, put it on the desk, and looked straight at Rose. 4 out of 6. She frowned. 4 out of 6 compatibility markers. It's not perfect. He paused, but it's enough to try. Rose let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Does that mean? That means your kidney could work in him. The rejection risk is higher than ideal, but we manage with meds. The important thing is your body is strong. His wants to keep going. Mark brought his hands to his face. His shoulders shook, but this time it wasn't pure despair, it was something mixed with relief. Rose felt her legs tingle. So we do it, she said, before either of them. When? 2 days, we need to assemble the team, book or adjust everything. Until then, rest, light eating, no stress. She laughed. A short, almost ironic laugh. Stress in this place. Dr. Henry smiled too, tired. I'll do my best. The night before surgery, Rose couldn't sleep. Lying in the hospital bed, alone in a simple room, she stared at the stained ceiling, following a crack from a light fixture to the wall. The digital clock read 2:17. The sound of oxygen from the next room came faintly through the door. In her mind, images took turns. Anna, child, feverish. Mia, the granddaughter running in the narrow hallway at home. Luke, with his cold hand in hers, asking why. She turned on her side, gripped the sheet hard. God, she murmured almost without opening her mouth. I'm not asking for me. If it has to go wrong for someone, let it be me. But let this boy play a little more. Go, run there for me. I know you can. A tear slid silently to the pillow. She closed her eyes, feeling her heart speed up and slowed down in waves. The surgery morning dawned gray. A nurse came early gently, brought the cap, the open-back gown. Ready, Ms. Rose? She shrugged. Ready? I don't know, but let's go, right? She went by wheelchair to the OR. The corridor seemed another world, everything too white, iodine smell, people in caps walking fast, talking in terms she didn't understand. The ceiling lights passed overhead, like road posts. In the anteroom, the AC cold cut. She shivered more from fear than temperature. Dr. Henry appeared with mask around his neck, blue cap, alert eyes. So, Ms. Rose, regretting? Still time, huh? She looked at him, half laughing, half serious. If I had to quit, I'd have quit back in the corridor, when I didn't even know the boy's face. He nodded slowly, fair. The anesthesiologist came with a syringe, explained something about cold in the vein and countdown. Rose extended her arm, looking at the ceiling. 10, 9, 8. Didn't reach 5. The darkness came soft, like a heavy blanket. When consciousness returned, it came in pieces. First the pain, a strange weight on her belly side, a pressure, as if someone forgot a stone inside her. Then the sound. Beeps, footsteps, low voices. Rose tried to open her eyes. The recovery room light came strong, but soon became tolerable. A hand held hers. Mom. Anna's voice trembled. Rose tried to speak, but her throat was dry. The boy. Anna smiled with watery eyes. It worked, Mom. The doctor said the kidney started working right away. He's already peeing. Can you believe? He hadn't done it alone in months. Rose closed her eyes tight. A tear slid sideways, mixing with cold sweat on her temple. The pain stayed firm, but for a second it seemed small, very small, compared to the image of a 9-year-old boy filling a bag with something so simple and miraculous. Beside the bed, the four-stand cast a long shadow on the wall. At a certain angle, it looked like a straight trunk with two open arms, almost a cross. But in that room, no one talked of death. For the first time in many nights, Rose fell asleep without fear, while on another floor of the same building, a small heart beat to the new rhythm of a borrowed kidney. The sound of the mop hitting the floor still lived in Rose's muscles, even weeks after surgery. Sometimes, when she woke in the middle of the night, she swore she heard the noise of water mixed with disinfectant running across ceramic. It was as if her body still tried to remember who she'd been. But now life was in another rhythm. Recovery was slow. Each step hurt like a zipper closed inside. But each visit from Mark and little Luke brought strength. The boy always arrived smiling with that new energy that made it seem like none of it had happened. He showed drawings, told jokes, said he wanted to learn to swim when he got stronger. You'll come to the pool too, right, Ms. Rose? Me? God forbid, kid. I'd sink like a rock, but I'll hold you. And he laughed. That laugh that seemed like light coming through the window. On the other side of the bed, Mark always watched in silence, as if still trying to understand how a janitor had changed his family's fate. On discharge day, he asked to talk to her alone, pushed a chair, sat slowly, put his hands on his thighs, rare for a man used to running the world. Ms. Rose, are you going back to the clinic? She adjusted her coat in her lap, already suspecting the conversation's direction. Next week, I already talked to the supervisor. I'll be on the 6th floor, same as before. Mark breathed deep. His chest rose and fell as if carrying very heavy words. So, I wanted to ask you not to go back. Rose widened her eyes. What? You're going to have me fired from the clinic now? No, for heaven's sake, that's not it. He ran his hand over his face, nervous. It's that it makes no sense for you to go back to cleaning corridors. You saved lives, my sons, mine too, in a way I can't even explain. Rose stayed quiet, always did when she didn't know where it was going. Mark continued. I have an institute, Second Chance. We help families who need transplants. We're missing a coordinator to bridge doctors, patients, donors, someone who understands this pain, someone who speaks in a way that desperate people can breathe. He looked directly at her. I want that someone to be you. Rose's heart beat like it bumped her chest. Me? But I barely finished high school. We fixed that. Courses, training, all paid. What you have, no one learns in college. Courage, empathy, truth. You changed our story. I want you to change others. Rose stayed a few seconds looking at the floor. Her fingers played with the purse seam, a habit when nervous. And what's the salary? Mark smiled briefly, almost relieved. Triple what you make now. The silence stretched between them for a few seconds. Rose breathed, looked out the window. The sun hit hard, lighting the glass of a tall building outside, reflecting in a shine that entered the room. Okay, she said. Anyway, I accept. The first morning in the Second Chance Foundation office seemed like another planet. It smelled of strong coffee, light wood desk, huge windows showing the city below, with buses passing like colorful miniatures. The AC blew too cold wind that made Rose hug her own arms. The computer keys made a rhythmic, fast sound, like a new language. People walking to and fro, talking in terms she hadn't heard. Protocols, meeting, immunosuppressant, legal. She stood at the door for a few seconds, as if seeing her own life from afar. The supervisor, an elegant woman named Marina, walked to her. Welcome, Rose. Want to see your desk? Desk? The word hit her like an impact. Desk, not mop, not bucket, desk. The desk was simple, with a brand new computer, a thermos, and a notepad with a blue pen. Rose ran her hand over the smooth surface, so clean it scared her to dirty it. Marina smiled. This will be your base, and no need to fear. Everyone starts lost. We'll walk together. And they did. In the first weeks, Rose learned email, filling forms, understanding tests. She noted everything in a thick notebook, with big, tight handwriting. Her eyes burned by late afternoon, but she didn't complain. Until her first case came. A simple family from rural Illinois. A 12-year-old girl, Carol, needed a liver transplant. The dad was afraid to be the donor. Rose received the couple in the office and, for the first time, saw in another's face the same terror that once lived in Mark's. The dad's hands shook. The mom spoke too fast. The girl hugged a teddy bear tight. Mr. John, Rose started with a calm voice like making a bed. I know you're scared, but let me tell you something. And she told without exaggeration, without drama. Spoke of the stretcher, the you're cold, the fear before anesthetic. Spoke of the pain after, slow recovery, body scars. Spoke of the first time she saw Luke walking the corridor laughing, with rosy cheeks. When she finished, the dad had watery eyes. If you could do it, I can too. The surgery happened 3 weeks later, and Carol survived. The new liver started working the same day. When the family returned to the office just to thank, Rose felt something hot squeezed in her chest, a mix of pride and gratitude that closed her throat. That's when she realized the kidney she'd given was transforming other lives. The months ran like water down a hill. Each case a new battle. Each family had a different pain, and Rose carried them all without complaining. Sometimes she'd get home and cry in the shower, not from sadness, but relief, knowing someone breathed again. Thanks to a decision of hers back there, on that cold hospital balcony. Marina one day stopped at her office door. Rose, Mark wants to see you. She entered his office. It seemed smaller than she remembered. Or maybe she was bigger. Mark stood, greeted with a smile full of respect. I wanted to tell you something, he said, pulling a thick folder. Since you started here, the number of successful transplants tripled. Rose blinked. Tripled. Tripled, he repeated. People trust you. You speak their language. You know where it hurts. She lowered her face, emotional. I just do what I can. Rose, he said slowly. You changed this place. He pushed the folder to her. I want you to be general coordinator of cases. Your team, your decisions. She felt her fingers tingle. Her voice didn't come on the first try. I don't know if I'm fit for this. Mark laughed lightly, sincerely. The whole U.S. already knows you are. You just need to believe. Rose looked out the office window. Outside, the orange light of late afternoon hit the tall buildings, painting the glass golden. It seemed the whole city was waving at her, calling for the next step. And in that window reflection, her image without uniform, sitting at a desk that was now hers. Rose finally saw. She wasn't a janitor anymore, not just a donor. She was a bridge taking people from the edge of despair to the edge of life. She breathed deep and said, I accept. Outside, A little pigeon landed on the balcony railing, stayed there, quiet, looking in, before flying off again, as if announcing something was starting, not ending. The digital clock in the Second Chance Foundation reception marked 7:01 when Rose crossed the glass door that cold July morning. 10 years had passed since the transplant, but it still seemed like everything was yesterday. The too-white corridor, the stomach pain, Luke's cold hand squeezing hers, like holding his own fate. Now, Rose's hair had more silver strands than black. The wrinkles at her eye corners told stories no one wrote in any book, but her walk, that firm step of someone who knows where they're going, that hadn't aged a day. She climbed the stairs slowly, still holding the bag with 2 bagels she'd bought at the corner deli. The city woke outside with horns, diesel smell, and hot bread. And for some reason, each morning like that reminded Rose of Luke's first breath with the kidney working. 10 years. It was too much time for little things and too little for a miracle that size. The public university auditorium was packed when she entered. She stayed at the hidden door, looking for a seat. In the audience, students, professors, some doctors. On stage, a young man in a white coat adjusted the microphone. Luke, 19, tall, thin, simple glasses, calm smile. It was strange to look at him and remember that one day he almost left, and now he was there explaining to future doctors what it was like to live with a piece of her. He cleared his throat and started. Well, my name is Luke Anderson. I'm in my 2nd year of med school, but before anything, I'm a transplant survivor. Rose felt her chest warm. It was as if her heart pushed her body to the front row chair, where she ended up sitting without noticing. Luke continued. When I was 9, my kidney stopped working. The machine did its job, and I remember thinking I'd be hooked to it forever. I remember the hospital smell, the monitor beeps, and my dad trying to hide he was crying. Some students laughed lightly, but then someone appeared, not a specialist, not a doctor, but someone with enough courage to lend me her life. Luke's gaze scanned the audience and stopped exactly where Rose was. She lowered her face a bit, emotional. That person is here today, he said. I just hope one day I can save someone like she saved me. Applause filled the auditorium. Rose stayed still, eyes shining. While the crowd clapped, she felt the pendant on her neck, the half-heart Luke had given years ago, tap lightly against her chest. Later, in the foundation office, Rose heard the excited voice of her longtime friend. Woman, look at this. It was Sandra, the nurse who 10 years before had told Rose not to get involved in the kidney story. Now retired, she made regular visits to the foundation just to gossip and drink coffee. She entered with a flyer in hand. This is going to be a book, huh? Rose frowned. Book? Sandra opened the flyer. It had a photo of Rose smiling, holding a transplanted child. Below written, Gift of Life. Stories that save stories. A journalist called me, explained Sandra excited. Said we should write this, that you've changed over 200 families, that America needs to know these stories. I said you'd agree. Rose widened her eyes. Me write a book? I barely write reminder notes. Sandra laughed loud, hands on hips. You just need to tell. They write it nice. Rose breathed slowly. Part of her wanted to run from that topic, hide behind a broom, a bucket, anything familiar. But there was something different now, as if life itself was pushing her forward. Okay, Rose. She answered slowly. I'll do the interview. They handle the rest. The following months were strange. A journalist came to her house twice a week. Recorder on, coffee fresh, windows open letting the south side breeze in. And Rose talked. Talked about the night she overheard through the door. Talked about the crumpled note in her pocket. Talked about the anesthesia fear, recovery pain, first time seeing Luke smile. Talked about the dozens of families she'd helped since. Sometimes while telling, she had to stop. Her heart squeezed. The past came like a too bright flash. But the journalist waited, respected, and Rose continued. When the book was ready, she held the first copy with both hands, as if too fragile to just sit on the table. It was beautiful, thick pages, golden cover, her name in big letters at the top. Rose Martin, Gift of Life. She almost dropped it. The launch happened at a downtown bookstore. Rose arrived in the same simple blue dress she wore for family birthdays. Inside there was a line, a real line, people waiting for her autograph. My God, Rose whispered, trembling. The first person was a man about 60. He handed her the book, holding tight. I lost a son waiting for a transplant, he said, voice failing. If back then I'd read your story, Maybe I'd have donated mine. Rose stayed silent. Her hand gripped the pen, and she wrote her name so carefully it seemed she was writing his too. A month later, a TV producer called the foundation. We want to tell this story to all America. Rose almost dropped the phone. On TV for everyone to see. Yes, a special on donation. You'd be the thread. She imagined herself on screen and wanted to run, but then remembered the moms crying in the hospital lobby and said, yes. The recordings were long. The crew filmed her house, filmed the hospital where it all started, filmed the balcony where she gave Mark the note, filmed Luke, now adult, showing the small scar on his belly. When the show aired, on a Sunday night, the whole U.S. watched, and that same night, over 10,000 people registered as organ donors. The foundation had to open overnight shifts. Rose sat in her own living room. TV still on, hands over mouth. Anna hugged her shoulders. It was like seeing a small stone fall in a lake, and the waves never stop. In the 10th year of the transplant, the foundation prepared a simple party in a neighborhood hall. Table with cake, sweets, colored balloons. On the screen, photos of all the transplanted kids over the decade. Some now teens, others already moms, some Rose remembered well, had arrived in parents' arms, limp, almost without strength. Now they ran, shouted, jumped, lived. Mark went on stage. The mic shook in his hand. 10 years ago, I thought I could buy everything. He started. Today I know what saved my son wasn't money, it was courage. The courage of a woman no one saw, who cleaned floors while I walked over them, and even so gave me everything. He looked at Rose. Rose Martin changed the lives of 217 families. She changed mine, and she deserves the world. Applause, whistles, people crying. Rose turned red, hiding her face in her hands. Luke approached, took the mic. His voice was steady, but eyes wet. If today I can study medicine, it's because of her. If today I live, it's because one day she chose to give me life. He extended his hand to Rose, calling her to the stage. When she went up, he held the half-heart pendant he'd worn since childhood. Rose held hers, and there, in the hall's center, with yellow lights reflecting on the metal, he brought the two pendants close. The halves fit with a light, soft click, a whole heart. Outside, at the party end, the light drizzle returned. Rose and Luke stayed on the sidewalk, watching cars pass. Mom, he said quietly. Thanks for not giving up. She smiled. Thanks to you for staying. A bus passed, splashing water. Rose adjusted her coat, and in the reflection of the foundation's glass next door, she saw something that made her hold her breath for a second. Instead of the tired janitor from years ago, she saw a whole woman, a woman who turned a solitary decision into a movement that crossed the entire country. And as she walked away with Luke, the pendant swinging on her neck, it seemed each of her steps made the city breathe a little better. If Rose's story reminds you that kindness can change a life, please subscribe to the channel and leave a small comment to let me know you're here, sharing in these gentle stories that help keep the world warm.